Simone, all of us founders are a little crazy because we're willing to do what others aren't. So when people tell us, no, you can't do that, we end up having to do it, right?
You have to do it.
Exactly. That's what makes us different. So are most of the estate sale companies mom and pop around the country, and is it very fragmented?
Majority.
Majority.
Yes. There are only two estate sale franchise companies that do truly just estate sales. We're the only one that added the business liquidations, but my vision of estate sales is very similar to how the lending or real estate companies have been built, where I would like to see, 20, 30 real main players of franchises that do estate sales. And, such as like, a Remax, Coldwell Banker, Hathaway,
Sure.
things like that, having the same, model of estate sales go through as franchises, and I would love to see it global. I know that there are many countries out there that need this same service, and I would love to see that we could take this someplace further.
Sure. Simone, I love fragmented industries because it's easy to snatch up some market share, right? And I love that your goal, your objective is ultimately for that industry to not be fragmented because it'll end up making your company better too, right? It legitimizes the business even further. And by elevating the game, ultimately the consumer gets a better experience. And you can't serve everybody anyway. I think that's such a great objective and a great way of looking at the business. You're looking at it from a standpoint of abundance and not scarcity in terms of customers, right?
I think that we are stronger when we build bigger and better, and that we open up our industries to other people to be in. I don't think there's a room in anything in regards to monopolies, because then what that does is it takes the consumer out of play because they only have one option or two options, right?
Sure.
They should have many, many options, and it's about the consumer. It's not about the industry, right? So if we can just, as entrepreneurs and creators, always remember the consumer
Mhm.
and who's buying our product, we would be a much better group of people.
I think so. So I get a lot of emerging franchise founders ask me about, they're starting out and they want to know, like, how do they get their first 10 franchise locations? So how did you get your first dozen or so franchisees? Who are they? Where'd you find them?
My sparkling personality. No, I I already had a very large network of people that trusted me and were going to follow me anywhere because they had followed me from the lending side to the real estate to the Remax to the escrow to, so I already had such a huge network of people that really wanted to do what I was going to do the next time around. So
Mhm.
those first 10, excuse me, may have been a little bit easier for me than some if their network isn't big enough, right? I think if you network early on in life or before you start franchising, it's much better to grow with people that you trust, right?
Mhm.
And so the first 10 franchises, I mean, one of them was working as she would come and pick up all the leftovers, right? Her and her partner. And it was like crazy, like dressers that were 400 pounds, they were lifting them. And I'm like, oh my God, like by the time you're 50, you're not even going to be able to stand up straight. Like you cannot do this. And so I'd offered her a franchise. At that time, we did 100% financing for her. And I figured, you know what? I'm saving a life today because at 50 she's not going to be able to and it was worth it, and so she's become an amazing business owner. I feel blessed every day that she's actually in my life because it's been such a great relationship. So I think offering our ability to build businesses to
Mhm.
people who can't normally do it is important as well. I know a lot of people look at it as, well, they have to have, $160,000 in the bank, right? And every FDD says you must have 132 or a million, whatever it is.
Mhm.
But if you can open up your mind to helping others get into the business, they will be forever grateful, and they will follow your brand guidelines. They will do everything because you gave them an opportunity. So if we could give more opportunities to people who want to get into small businesses like franchising, I think it would have a lot more people enjoying their life and doing what they love to do rather than just the everyday 9 to 5.
I agree with you. I agree with that. And I experienced something very, very similar where a young guy needed some help early on in my franchise career in getting in the business. And I believed in him wholeheartedly. And I did be able to finance his franchise early on because he just had like that it factor. Sometimes you just see that in that person's eye. You know that they're going to make it and they needed a little extra help. And he became a huge success and actually exited the franchise system a few years ago. And him and his family just, they enjoyed all the hard work. He's enjoying now the fruits of his labor. I'm so thrilled that I was able to see that in him, as see the same thing in people. Definitely should be more opportunity out there. With that said, it sounds like you and your team, you've done a great job with diversity. Let's talk about diversity in Grasons and what that looks like for your company.
I had just done an article on this on diversity. I had no idea that I had that percentage in there. I have never looked at diversity as a way to make a decision. My decision making in selling franchises, Ben, is, do you love the business? Will you love what you're doing? Are you kind, compassionate, but you also have strength to allow your sellers to see that strength so they can walk away and do what they need to do with their everyday life when this happened? So if they happen to be one way or the other, I don't know. I just never looked at it like, oh, I got to go out and get like this many people, this many
Mhm.
things. And I've always just sold to the people I thought would be appropriate to be a part of our Grayson's family. And it just so happened that it involved diversity.
Yeah, what 59% of your franchisees are from minority groups, right? That's amazing.
It's hard to say, because I don't like the word minority because I think we're the majority, right?
Right,
Like
right.
most people, majority being business owners, right? We want to be business owners. Most people do. I just never, I can't wrap my head around color or ethnicity, if I say that right. It's really hard for me to say that, or age or anything like that. A separate class of people. I've never looked at people like that. I guess I would be one of the very few gender blind individuals. I could care less if you're male or female. As long as you want to do this and you
Mhm.
love it, then yeah, you're more than welcome to come join us.
That's awesome, Simone. Your heart is really in the right direction. I love that. Let's talk about you as a franchisor. What do you think? Because you had a background in franchising, which is rare in real estate with Remax, but what do you think it takes to build a real solid foundation as a franchisor with those first units?
Honesty. I
Mhm.
mean, the people look at franchisors as like salespeople, right? We're looking for the next, how fast can we build? How many can we get, right? In the beginning, there was an article written by the New York Times. They had interviewed me, and you can see like my goals in there, which were just outrageous, right? I was like, oh, we're going to have 40 the first year, 50 second. And then I got into doing franchising, and I realized that you could have 40 that first year, Simone, but you will have 36 of them that will never produce, right?
Mhm.
So I think when you become a franchisor and you're looking at that first 10, the first 10 are very important. They will shape the rest of your model, right? When you put that culture in place, that culture has to last throughout the entire time. If you change that culture, you lose those legacy owners and you start losing what you actually built. So staying focused on why you built it. I know that some people build because they're like, I'm going to build franchise and make $1 million, and people are going to go out there and they're going to work with me, right? And they're going to make me money. That is not the way I look at it. I look at it and think, I'm going to build a franchise and I'm going to sell 1,000 of those franchises because 1,000 people are going to own their own business someday. And I did that. And then
Mhm.
if you can do that, then every time you sell a franchise, it feels amazing. And you're not always looking for that next one, right? You're enjoying what you're doing every single day.
It's all about mindset. Your mindset was really on making people successful and awarding franchises to the right people as opposed to just the sheer number. But as the franchisor, you know that you have to scale rather quickly, and we want to get to being royalty sufficient sooner rather than later so we stay in business. How did you know with 40 franchises? I imagine that you didn't just open up with a whole slew of them right away. It was slow and steady pace.
Slowly, some years we did 7 sales, 10 sales. There was a time when we were growing so fast that I actually stopped doing sales to really put the technology and all the things in place that the franchisees needed.
Mm.
Because when you grow fast, you have to learn how to scale that growth. And sometimes when you have a model that is so advantageous and people want it, you can't just continue to sell it and just compound and compound and compound problems on top of it because you don't have that infrastructure in place. So I took about a year to revamp all the infrastructure to make sure that I could satisfy more locations and have more locations coming in rather seamlessly. And that was probably one of the easiest decisions I've ever made, was to slow it down. A lot of people think that's difficult to do because they're thinking of the dollar amount, right?
Hmm.
But if you don't think about the dollar and you think about the big picture and the future of the business, do it while it's earlier on in your franchise growth, right? Because when you try to slow things down when they're booming at 40, 50, 60, 100, 1,000 franchises, good luck. I mean, it's too many people involved, too many locations involved, and you can't really scale that. I mean, so I was very happy to be able to like, whoa, stop for a minute. We need to put this back in on the right track and make sure we get to the right place.
Simone, you are so smart because you're able to make a decision based on what's right to do, not what is popular. Because the popular decision would be just we'll figure out as we go. But you realize that I would love for you to take me back to that time where you said we have to stop selling franchises, because there are emerging founders out there that are listening to this, and they're in the same position where they grew a little too quick, and they're really nervous because they don't have everything in place. And the systems and processes the wheels are starting to fall off the truck maybe a little bit. So can you take us back to that time? What was happening internally that made you decide, guys, we need to put the brakes on this?
There was only two of us. Myself, I believe Brenda was with me at the time, or maybe it was Melissa. I had another assistant who now since owns a franchise herself. We had been getting calls nonstop from the current franchises and different technologies and trainings and things we needed to do. And of course, I love technology, so I was getting so bombarded into the technology world that I was forgetting, how to implement that for the franchisees, right? And when you do that, you start to lose focus on the growth. What I realized was they needed more nurturing rather than technology. Because you could put as much technology in anybody's face, it's not good if they don't use it, right? It's like the
True.
person who's, oh, they have great potential. They're 60 and they never used it. So no, they don't have great potential. They never had it, right? I mean,
Right.
it's just I don't know. So this is the same thing with this was I looked at it and thought, we're losing the confidence of the current franchises because we're not giving them the tools to make their life easier. We're giving them more technology and more tools and more of this, but it's overwhelming them. And so we needed to scale everything back and say, let's get back to our basics. Why did we start this? Why are we selling franchises? Well, because we want other people to be successful in our business as well, while we're helping other people in our local areas. And so I scaled it all the way back to the original thought process of why did I get into estate sales? And then I built up from there.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.